11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome, everybody. See if anybody joins us tonight. Going live again on the Daily Gun Show. Every single night since 2016, we've been live, if you count the days that we weren't here. So we talk about guns, and we do it for real. So in other words, we're not, watching a car zoom by and then screech on the brakes as it drove past my house. We don't have the fake gun talk that you find in a lot of other live chats that are out there. So if you're joining us live, you'll notice that the comments are up on the screen. You can highlight them like this, and you can highlight your comment if you were to make one. So I just got a couple of things we could do this evening. I was on with Yankee earlier, and that reminded me about the comment periods. So let's go check out the comment periods. That was something I've been meaning to do for a while now. So comment periods, what's all that about? Well, whenever the government, I think it's just the executive branch, whenever they're about to do some, let's say, policy change, whenever they're going to interpret things differently, they will, I don't know if they're mandatory, if they're obligated to do it, or if they just do it when they feel like it or when it works for them. But when they make policy changes, they'll often create a comment period to ask those who are about to be regulated by their regulations to offer some insight. And they've done this a number of times. If we run over to Minuteman University, we can see just how many times. But those of you that have been in the game for a little while, remember the previous, efforts or previous attempts or previous instances where the ATF has used the Federal Register at the Department of Justice to beckon or let people know about a new regulation. And they've done it one at a time, ever. Like, I think maybe we had 2 at a time, or maybe there was 5 at a time, I forget now. But unprecedented, 34 at a time right now. So I just figured out what to do, and I opened up the ATF website. I really need to open up the Federal Register. That's what I need to open. So we're opening that up, and we can see these all started on 6/22. That can't be right. Well, they didn't end on 6/22. Annual list of explosive materials. No, that is from 6/22. The rest of these are from 5/8. So that would make 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. We have about a month, I guess. Let's take a look. So I guess I could do this with the screen share since nobody's watching tonight. I'm just doing this. Can you hear the fireworks going off in the background? Got a little girl here who does not like that. So, what are you doing, little girl? Come here. You come here. I'll give you a petty. She says, I wish you were doing this on a couch because then she could sit on the couch next to you. But she's not, or I'm not. So, some people are out shooting off the fireworks a couple of days early, and she does not like the sound of fireworks. So she's glitching out over here. All right, well, so let's open this up to, I didn't even read it yet. Open that up, there we go. Get me out of here. There we go. So looking at the Federal Register, this is the place where all the comments are. It looks like they added a new one here this last month in June. But most of the ones we're interested in are these from 5/8. And if we scroll down, look at how many there are. So there's 34 of them. Can't change the number per page. So as we scroll through, here's a bunch from 5.6. Importing training rounds, allowing makers to adopt certain markings for NFA firearms. Interesting. Clarifying interstate transportation of firearms under the Gun Control Act. So let's take a look at that one specifically. It came from 5.6. 172 comments received. Does it tell us summary dates? All right, on or before August 4th. So we've got just about a month before these are going to be where they are. Let's take a look at those 172 comments. You're going to show them to us. Docket ticket. Public comments. This looks closer. There we go. There's the comments. Takes a minute to get accustomed to this, but this is what we're used to seeing. So comment on, right off the bat, it looks like a form because every single title on every single one of these is the same. Look at this. All right, in support of this proposed rule, federal law already permits law-abiding citizens to transport firearms, and this rule simply clarifies what that looks like in practice. Like overnight stops. Oh, okay, this one. Okay, so this one might be okay. So this is a sign, perhaps. Let's see if this next one is exactly the same. Oh, no, this one's different. As a North Carolina gun owner who travels, I strongly support this proposed rule. Okay. All right, so that's 172. They just all say comment, I guess, up here. See people joining in from all the different platforms. We're on X. No, you're still be on X right now. But a bunch of people on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome. You are allowed to comment, even though you're listening. I am in favor. All right, so I'm stoked about that one. There's only 164. I thought there was 170, but anyway, 164 comments on that one. Yeah, it says 172 over here, and then when you open it up, there's 164. So maybe that's already filtering out doubles. There's Woods out there. Thanks for some feedback. Until we get some feedback, I never know if we're live or not. So I appreciate it. So just checking out the 34 executive. No, they're not. 34. What are these called? Comment period at the register. And the first one had 160 comments, and they seem to be on our side. So let me find another one that has something to do. Unlawful user to addicted substance. That's a different one. This is from 122, and that already got ruled on, so I guess that's ancient history. So let's see if there's another one on this page. Transferring machine guns between qualified licensees. Who cares? Revising machine gun definition in response to Supreme Court decision. Let's see what that has to say about it. Open in new tab. There we go. All right, so how did I get over there? Public comments are no longer accepted. What? It's effective on May 6th. Oh, I guess screw us on that one. So these aren't all getting public comments, I guess. Little girl sitting right here still. Hasn't been a firework in a little while, so what time is it? It's like 10. It's a dumb time to be doing fireworks anyway. Let's see, firearms, electric, record keeping. revising adjudicated as mental deficient or defective and committed to a mental institution. Let's see what this is about. Let's see, notice of proposal, rule making comments. There's 24 comments on this one. Close some of these and I'll get lost in the windows. 23 comments on this one. This one still has until August 6th. Let's open up a couple of these. Please see attached document for comment. Comment ATF. Interesting. There are many abuses by family members who use a Baker Act or commitment as a form of abuse. When a person enters a facility with healthcare, the facility is financially motivated to commit the person as they are for profit. The trials are not fair as there is no jury. I would compare this to Gitmo or Salem witch trials. The patient is usually drugged to the point where they do not comprehend what's going on. By allowing constitutional rights to be violated with huge financial barriers to regain your rights, this is unlawful. That's pretty good, interesting take on it. Pretty well stated. See attached letter. So when did that start being a thing? That sounds like what barbecue did that time. Where he wrote, it's another one. See attached letter. I either clicked on the same one or I'm scrolling more, or they're getting a form letter. Okay, this one's different. It's a start, but it's not Pro 2A enough. A person should not be permanently prohibited just because they were involuntarily committed to a mental institution or adjudicated by a court. Nice. They go on for quite a while. I mean, this is probably a really good one. It ends with, if someone is too dangerous to acquire or possess a firearm, then he or she should either remain locked up until he or she is no longer a danger and automatically gets their right to arms restored, or the individual should receive capital punishment. That's scary. So either the government is always right, or if they're wrong, then we should be able to kill people. Let's assume the government's wrong all the time, then let's not let the government kill people. That's my theory. I'll click on this one. I'm a veteran myself. This is a comment here. I'm a veteran myself, and the rule precludes any idea I might have to avail myself of any assistance from the VA in the future should I become depressed for something, like the death of one of my children. By the way of example, some do-gooder counselor at the VA might arbitrarily decide to take my guns away. No, sir. The effect of the rule ensures knowing veterans will not seek care they might otherwise need. Well said, well stated, and I'd say pretty succinctly. Ed Woods is saying, wasn't the ATF plaintiff on the Weed decision? ATF doing Sadie shit, having this many comment periods simultaneously. Yeah, I'm not sure what the strategy is here at all. And I don't know how to interpret the results here because they're not as dire as I suspect, as I feared they could be. But I guess someone would have to actually go through and one by one open up each one of these. Let's see how hard that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, assuming it's letting me do these. Shit, was this 6? I might have missed one there. 7, 8. Oh crap, I did that one in a stupid way that I don't like. I need to get rid of this. Right click and say, shit, how do you close these? I hate this stupid split window garbage. Why do they even make this? This is stupid. This is for people that are on a laptop and don't know how to use their computer. How do I pull this out? Can I pull this part out? Separate split view. There you go. Stupid windows. They're stupid. Time saving. Wasted my time. I probably missed a few at this point. I'll let DJ know we're live over here. That's enough. Let's see if they even open. So this one has 182 comments. This one has over. This one has 182. What's up with that? This one has over. Oh, come on. This one has 168. Revising firearms trend, revising the 4473 has only 160. Interstate transport of temporary something or another only has 170 something. This one, 33. Removing Youth Handgun Safety Act notice, 33 comments for the youths. Public, 7 comments for converting temporary to permanent imports for defense articles. Interesting. I don't know what happened over here. See, I don't know what happened there. And look over here. 31 comments for importing dual-use frames, receivers, or barrels. Sorry, Mello. I'm just swatting a mosquito there. See, same thing happened here. I don't know what's happening. So, looks like shady shit, walks like shady shit, talks like shady shit, probably shady shit. Yeah, I don't know. The blue team ATF did 37 comment periods at once. Oh, if the blue team, is that I don't know which one's which. If they did anti ones all at once, everyone would be freaked out and probably doing something about it when they're all kind of not anti. I guess that was their excuse for not focusing on these or talking about them at all, because I suspect I haven't heard anybody talk about these at all. Did Yankee say he didn't even know about that these were happening? So, like, nobody's even paying attention to these if we're not told to, right? Like, why would anybody pay attention to something on the Federal Register unless it's important enough? So whenever I did that video a while back, is that this one? I did this video in May 13th. And whenever I did this video, the only thing I could find, I think I looked around while we were live that day, and the only thing I could find was GOA talking about one specific one. And that might be one of the ones that has a lot of comments on it or something. But looking at them so far, what I feared was that the antis would just take this and run with it and use their bots or their techniques to get people to participate and give their motivation, give their people motivation to do stuff. So reading there, so I should have read. So now I lost track. Anyway, so I don't know. I didn't read all those comments, but short of going through and figuring out that some of these, for whatever reason, even though there's 34 of them, there was something like 11 that mattered to us or 11 that didn't matter. But it looks like there's some percentage of these, some number of them that aren't really comments. They just must be statements, I guess. So it must be because they say proposed rule or rule, I guess. And the ones that are proposed rules are the ones that are getting comment periods. That makes sense. Firearms records retention. That one has 7,000. Could this be the one that the GOA had a form letter for? Let's find out. So all of a sudden, this one, which still has till August 4th, has 7,000 responses. Let's take a look at some of them. Oh, what do you know? Form letter. I joined Gun Owners America and strongly opposing. So is it possible that GOA was like, hey, there's 34 of them. Let's only worry about the one that could attack us, that could hurt us? I joined Gun Owners America and strongly opposing. Oops. So it looks like this could be 7,000 form letters. Is that a flex? 7,000 form letters? So 7,000 people pushed a button, or at least a button got pushed 7,000 times on a website, that instigated a form letter, which I don't want to say they disregard. I don't believe they disregard them. I just believe they count a form letter at a different weight than, this one says something different. We must not allow these illegal searchable databases to remain available to the government. I think we know where that one's going. So that's one of the 7,000, but it's not one of the GOA form letters. So that's good to know, because I've only clicked on 5 of them or something here. So 1 out of 5 already, although this is another GOA form letter. That shows us that they're at least not all form letters, but that we know that they're going to click a button and filter all the form letters. And like I say, I don't think they're not calculated. They're just calculated with a different weight. So although we see 7,000, entities show up in the database, they're going to weight those differently and, probably look at it more like 700 instead of 7,000. But in comparison, that still blows away all these others with less than 100 or just over 100, less than 150 though. So I don't know where to take this. I don't have the resources. I don't have that much interest in this. I'm not all that worried about ETF comment periods. They're interesting. There's not that many of them, so it is possible to understand them all. This wave of them, or this tidal wave of them, really is unique and unprecedented. But as far as is it a problem or is it not? That's the question. I guess we don't know. Would you say this question? There are alcohol stuff or explosives. Are you saying, are there alcohol stuff or explosives and tobacco other than firearms? Yeah, I can't remember now. Whenever I looked at it back in early or mid-May, I guess, I do remember one of the reasons I went live, because everything that I had looked at was vague, and I didn't know if it was vague because it was difficult to know the data, which is sometimes the case, or if it was everybody was just half-assing it or lazy or something. So so anyway, so I wanted to understand it better. So since no one had really taken that on, I decided I'm going to go live and just figure it out. So I'm sure it was pretty boring and dry because I was figuring it out as I was live. But basically, I went through, found that there's a page on the ATF, I think I'm looking at it now, that describes the stupid event. And then there's the page over on the register that we were just looking at a minute ago. And I just closed it by now, though. And it looks like somebody's yelling out the street. I'm looking out my camera out the front door because everybody's shooting fireworks off, and I'm making sure my dog isn't freaking out too bad. But anyhow, so distracted a little bit. So I started to read through this while we were live in the last show, and I can't remember now if there was 11 items that had nothing to do with us or that we would care about. And of those 11, at least a couple of them were tobacco or whatever it is, something else that the ATF is tasked with. And, we're just, we're paying attention to it for the gun side, but it had nothing to do with us. And I don't even know what they were. It was if it was selling cigarettes or what it was. So it's a big nothing burger? No, I think it's the opposite of that. I think anytime we see I won't say tremendous action, but every time we see, or whenever you see a lot of action being taken by an organization or a group that normally doesn't, I think that's worth paying attention to. And in this case, I've personally been concerned about the executive branch and all the focus that everyone likes to give the executive branch. I mean, that's happened since the beginning of time, because so many other systems of government and so many other countries have kings and shit like that. We tend to look at the president like some kind of king. So that's an issue, and it's always been an issue. But recently, we've been allowing the Congress and the Senate to, by inaction or by literally writing laws, they've delegated a lot of responsibility and authority over to the executive branch, which it does need, but it should be checked and balanced, right? So that's where I'm a little concerned that if we allow the ATF in this case, or any branch, or any part of the executive branch, but in this case, the ATF, to, I don't want to say abuse because I don't know what to call this, but, utilize or increase at such a drastic rate this tool, then it should be scrutinized and questioned, right? And that's, like, I don't know, a long ass way of saying, I don't think it's nothing. I think it's probably not a big thing, but just because it's not big, if you close the door and you expect privacy and someone opens the door but doesn't do anything, they just open your door, you're still pissed they open your door. Maybe that's the way to say it. So even though they opened this door and didn't really do nothing, I'm still not cool with them opening the door. And I don't know if that analogy works, but that's my same problem with forced reciprocity, where people seem to think by forcing reciprocity from the federal government on all the states that we somehow win. We temporarily win, but then we've given the federal government the right to force the states on a constitutional issue. And that seems like thin ice, seems like slippery slope on thin ice. Like, I just don't like anything about that, because we hand our government back and forth to two sides of the ping pong game every 4 years, usually, maybe every 8 years, whatever. But every so often we flip, and we've seen that when that happens, when it's not regulated or they're not self-regulating or self-whatever, then we get extremes, and that's what we don't want. So I don't like giving the executive branch like the nod by inaction or by not paying attention to this. It's frustrating that I think we're giving them the nod. We're saying, hey, feel free to continue using this tactic against us, or, in spite of, I don't know, the opposite, which would be don't do this. Or if you're going to do 35 of them, maybe spread them out. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. If I knew the answer, I would have sponsors paying us a bunch of money for the show. There'd be all kinds of production value and stuff. Welcome, Rumbles out there. Welcome. Well, let's see. I trust the ATF zero amount regardless of the red and blue. Yeah, exactly. An agency that is tasked with such a wide variety. Explosives? I don't know. Does the government need to be involved in explosives? Seriously? What about explosives is so delicate that the federal government, is going to have some better way to regulate and enforce whatever? Investigate them? Like, I don't know, maybe, but still that could be something else. But anyway, they stuck that on the F end anyway, because it is ATF until they changed it to ATFB or whatever. So then tobacco, like, what the hell? That's just literally a taxing thing, because I don't think they check the quality of tobacco. Maybe they do. But that could be, if tobacco is ingested, since it is, I would say that's under the FDA. I don't know why that needs to be in its own thing. Tobacco is so specialized. I guess because of the legal situation with it. And, what's that called when you transport it illegally? Why can't I think of the name for that? What they did with alcohol during Prohibition, the bootlegging. If it's something about the bootlegging, maybe that requires some extra enforcement. And then, of course, alcohol. If the stupid Prohibition wouldn't have been, I don't know, alcohol is the same thing as food. Why isn't it just FDA? So I could see ATF chopping off, like Woods is saying, alcohol could go to FDA. Food could go, tobacco could go to the Food Administration or whatever, as far as like quality and safety and that kind of shit. So that's all anybody should care about. And then firearms will just come off, because they don't need to be on there. Like, there's not a Department of Vehicles at the federal level. Now, when you remove the ATF at the federal level, what happens at the state level? Like, do they start ATFs? And that's a big question. The people who are pro-federal, big federal government are going to say the big federal government should squash any state level ATFs. State rights people would say, as long as the federal government ain't doing it, it's up to the states to decide if they want to do it. And that could get scary and free. A lot of people don't like freedom, it's scary. But I don't know why we need explosives regulated by the federal government. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what it is about them. Now, when you think about crimes, or I guess, or, you know, like the destructive use or the criminal use of like explosives or something, that's what the FBI is all about, for being like a national level police department. They, at the national level of policing, took on things back in the day that we had issues with. From what I understand, like states being individual, you'd have jurisdiction, and the jurisdiction of a state or a local law enforcement would end at a state line. So the federal level law enforcement was to help deal with the organized crime that became a thing after Prohibition or during Prohibition, and that gave the federal law enforcement greater powers. And understandably, I guess, if you look at it from that perspective, that there's ways that the criminals are going to exploit the existing system to basically run across a state line, run across an international border, and stick their tongue out at the law enforcement that was chasing them. So, you know, but now that we're at a time when we don't have, or we have different crimes, we have way more crimes than we had back then. When you look at, one of the things to look at with law enforcement is when it first started, I don't know what the hell it first started. I guess I learned this at some point, but it first started probably, 20 people standing around. Somebody decided, hey, your job now is to make sure that when we're all doing stuff, that person isn't stealing from us, right? So I'm sure the first police were just there to like keep the peace, essentially. And then eventually, when we got so many people, the job became larger. We got vehicles, and then additional jobs were given to the police. But when those original police were created, whenever that was, sometime back in the olden days, there was only so many crimes. There's always been crimes like murder and theft, but there wasn't computer crime until there was computers, right? There wasn't identity crimes until there was probably enough people standing around keeping track of each other to realize that somebody was being a criminal. Somebody was acting like they're a person they're not. I can't think of any. But right, vehicle crimes essentially is the easiest one to think about. Like, there was no cars. Before there were cars, you couldn't have traffic violations, at least not the same. So policing has changed. And when you think about how policing has changed, the number of crimes that exist, like that you can charge somebody with, the statutes or whatever they're called, the laws and stuff, get added to, but they don't get changed all that often. But they do get added to slowly. But a lot of times, the system, quote unquote, right, the state, whatever you want to call it, those who are there to create law and order, or keep law and order, or establish law and order, however you want to look at it. Every once in a while, a criminal is going to come along and do something that's never been done in their jurisdiction before, and that's a new crime to them. And whether or not they're able to deal with that is the question, right? So when you start thinking about, let's say, for example, international entities, non-state players, but international non-state players. So cartels is a good example of that, but like the mafia and the Yakuza and shit like that. It's players, people with enough resources to be in the game, but they're not, a state. They're not a country. They can move their pieces wherever they can, as far as like, smuggling and shit, but they can move their pieces because they're not paying attention to laws. And that's where you get into what exists as laws and how often we've updated the list of laws. And while states can sometimes create new laws that kind of keep up with whatever criminals are doing, federal wise, we've not coordinated or, yeah, I guess coordinated is the word, enough of the state's data to actually take good records. So if you listen to law enforcement conversations at the federal level, that's an issue. And it wasn't until the 1980s that they first figured out it was a big deal because of new crimes. Just think of the drug laws that would have been different in the 80s or whatever. So they figured out this back in the 80s and they started to address it. But, think about the AI and the computers and the internet and cell phones and international shit that's happened between the 1980s and today. So even though in the 1980s, the federal level law enforcement decided, hey, let's reevaluate what crimes are, and start recording, start keeping track of this more crimes, like all these computer crimes we're hearing about, and these corporate crimes and all these other crimes that are happening, new types of smuggling and whatever, new drugs and things. And then before you knew it, it was the internet and 2000s, and we haven't, as far as I know, they're still barely catching up. I think 2000s something was the deadline for them to all get up to the 1980s standard. And when they came up with the new standard in the 2000s, it won't be until quite a while before everyone is even counting all these new crimes. So that's a long ass way of saying, if the government, if the systems themselves can't keep track, don't even know all the crimes that are being committed right now, like, do we really want to disband our federal level infrastructure? So I can't say disband everything, but I definitely can understand getting rid of their distractions, right? So in other words, having a national level law enforcement that's focused or specializes in firearms, I don't know, is that really an issue? I don't think so. But if someone considered that still an issue, remove regulating and enforcing gun shop rules. So now gun shops can do whatever they're going to do. Anybody who wants to be a gun shop can be a gun shop. Anybody that just wants to buy stuff can't. Manufacturers aren't just going to be like, hell yeah, we're open for business. Just drive your car up and open the trunk and we're going to scoop guns into the back of your car because that's what we've been wanting to do this whole time. No, in fact, it'll probably be like, oh, now that there's no rules, here's our rules, right? And their rules will suck because they're going to say, oh, I don't have these stupid regulations anymore. Well, I'm still going to be, what's the word, like, I'm still going to be here for my customers. So therefore, we're still going to do serial numbers and stuff. And since there's no rules, I'm going to establish with my distributors and my end, sellers, the same kind of relationships they would have had back in the old days. So in other words, if they want to make sure product reliability and everything is there and there's no federal regulations to create an infrastructure for that, the industry will create that infrastructure. So we'll end up with no ATF, right? Like we'll end up with probably just as much, if not more, in industry created infrastructure just to make sure that the guns are good quality. Not everybody will do it because it won't be obligated or mandatory, but you know what I'm saying. So anyway, until that happens or whatever, I don't think we're going to have no federal level law enforcement, but reorganizing it so that you get rid of the NFA and you get rid of the ATF system or the FFL system, and you let the ATF do, I don't know, like importing. And like I say, if there are federal level gun crimes, maybe international, like, I don't know. But anyway, you take away a lot of the regulation and dumb level, not unnecessary level of enforcement. And now the ATF, nobody would give a shit about them because we wouldn't even hear about them unless they were taking down a cartel or something. But I'm just talking off my head. I didn't think that up and figure it all out or something on paper. How much noise is going on right outside my door? At least it sounds like it. This must be a really good microphone. Just panning the camera around for a second because it sounds like somebody's beating on my door, but I guess it's not. Maybe it's the cat or something out there. Anyway, if anybody's got any gun topics, feel free to bring them up. I just figured since I was starting the show off here, I would dig in and see where we're at with that since we kind of talked about it on that other show. So I'm not, I don't know what to think. I'm not, definitely not as worried or at least as concerned. I guess I wasn't worried. Not as concerned as I was before. However, I'm still not, I don't believe it's good for us to ignore something like this. Let's put it into car terms. This is, I don't know how to put it in car terms. Like the government asked us to get a couple extra parking permits or something. Like you just need to get a parking permit for every corner, every parking spot in town you might park at. Doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're one of those people that parks in different spots every day. Then you're going to need like 1,000 parking permits. So only some people are getting affected. That's not a good analogy. Do I got a bracket? No. I'm not trying to be an entertaining show. I'm trying to come up with some way to talk guns for real. Alternative, I don't know if you saw some of the losers out there complaining that the gun industry's falling apart. So some of them, we were talking about this in an off-air chat, but, there's the gun community, which is what I consider like all the people that own guns and hang out and talk to each other and like go to the range and, just peg people that have guns. So that's the gun community. Then there's the gun industry. And guess what that is? That's the businesses and the gun shops and like the people who make guns and gun accessories and that kind of thing. And then there's the YouTubers. And those are people, that go on YouTube and talk about guns or whatever. So sometimes people are one or more, two of those things at the same time. Some people are even three of those things at the same time, right? But then I think most people are probably one of those things. And the people that are, there's definitely people that I don't hang out with, that I don't like, that do the gun thing and then the gun thing on YouTube specifically because it made money. Like you could make a lot of money doing that depending on how you did it, for quite a while. And they're bitching and moaning. Some of them are bitching and moaning right now because at the moment they're not making any money and they're complaining and they're trying to make more money or whatever. So, that happens, I don't know, not just every year at this time, because whatever time the kids get out of school, like right after, I guess, spring of each year is when YouTube starts messing with their logarithms. And it's when most people aren't using the internet. So that's when the internet companies do all their experimenting and stuff. So, this happens every year to some extent. And then it happens in waves, like it gets louder and it gets less of a thing over time. So anyway, this is nothing new, but just a new wave of people bitching and moaning got me motivated to have a conversation that isn't motivated by any of that shit. So I think I'm probably all three of those things. I'm definitely in the gun community, and then I'm definitely on YouTube, and I think I can say I'm in the gun industry, not 100% or nothing, but enough to know people and stuff. So anyway, I figured listening to enough people bitch and losing some shows. We all know we lost some shows. We lost a lot of shows, depending on how far back you want to go. So I figured I'd try to get the show going again here, see what kind of response we got. Was just saying we had new laws start yesterday here. So he's in Washington State, and I know they had some stuff happen in Colorado, I believe, as well. And I don't know, I only watch, pay attention to a number of channels. I can't pay attention to everybody. So of the channels I pay attention to, only a couple of them are in Washington or pay attention to Washington. So I have seen some frustration, some like urging to do stuff before the deadline and all that. And then now that the deadline is hit, I don't know what to call it. You're going to go through your phases of dealing with it, and it sucks. I don't know if the antis are doing a dance about this because they really probably don't appreciate how much they screw things up. I'm sure they totally dig it. They like it, but they don't even understand when they've accomplished a lot for their own side, which I guess is good, but it's kind of frustrating that your opponents don't even know enough to give a shit. But that is interesting, and again, I got to start doing the show in order to get going with it. But one of the things I would like to do is take a show to talk about each of the states that's getting beat on. There's like 11 of them, so that'll be at least 11 weeks of talking about it. I don't want to do nothing but that. Nobody wants to just hear about how somebody's getting this, crap kicked out of them. But without knowing who's getting the crap kicked out of them and how they're getting the crap kicked out of them, how do we expect to help each other? So I'll try to focus on maybe one a week and shed some more light on that. Ideally, it would be nice to have people on who, are subject matter experts that could give us the lowdown on each of the different states. So we'll see what we can do. Woods is saying in Washington, the background fee from $18 to $34. I don't know what the hell. So you had to pay for a background fee? Most people, FYI, don't pay for a background check. So if you're paying for a background check, you're unique. That's not normal. Let's see. DJ is saying you could host a comment period party, get folks informed like this and linked up with the firearms ones. That's interesting. And that would be an interesting campaign that would be kind of a la or something that I would imagine the gun owners radio would do, or the San Diego Gun Owners is the organization behind Gun Owners Radio. But they've done the most outreach and the most normalization efforts that anyone I can think of in recent times. There have been some normalization efforts out there, but they have not done anywhere near as well as what they've been able to do in San Diego. So having a party to create awareness of the comment period would be interesting for both like a gun owners focused one, but then also one for people that have no idea what's going on, that aren't even gun owners. That would be interesting too. Bring in Tony's 2A4E or the orientation and for gun owners or for new people who want to be interested in guns. Kind of bringing that aspect in, except making it an awareness of rights party as well. Yeah, your crap started on the 1st. DJ saying background per 4473 or per permit? And I guess that's a good point. I was assuming for a 4473. Let's see, Woods is asking, how is there a fee for my right? Do I need a Fourth Amendment permit or a First Amendment license? Well, there is a there is a press pass. So you have a right to a free press, but that doesn't mean that everyone can call themselves the press and walk onto a crime scene. So they do create credentials or offer credentials to the press, which does give them the, more access, I guess, than others who don't have that credential. Now, what about churches? Can anybody just be a church? That's the First Amendment, right? No, you got to get a permit or whatever and be a church. So I don't know if they're regulated as much as just making sure that everybody's not just saying they're a church, I guess. So I get it, but then, I'm trying to play devil's advocate there. As far as the fee, I think the fee is for the freaking piece of paper and the department and all that. So the fee isn't for your whatever to give you the issue. It's to pay for the whatever, the system behind it. And that makes it better. I didn't want to hear this. Woods is saying the FOID, which is the Firearms Owner Identification Card thing, is July of 2027. The permit to buy thing is what he's saying now. So that's messed up. So like I say, I don't even know what all you got to deal with, but having to ask permission to buy a thing and then it sounds like pay in order to buy one is messed up. It's definitely, if nothing else, it's just a way to grab money from you. But it's really obnoxious. Is that the right word? It's like, it's anyway, it's beyond. It is definitely unconstitutional. And then you have to have a permit in order to even own a gun. I don't understand how that's a thing. So I guess that one hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet. But there's a couple of states that have that. And unfortunately, it looks like Washington is going to be adding to that list. Hopefully, it'll be removed from existence before it has a chance to enact up there. The Woods is clarifying that it's whatever he said, that the cost of a background check went from $18 to $34. That's for the background check when you do the 4473. So each state is each state is different. So there is a mandatory, since 1994, there's a mandatory 4473 that needs to get filled out by a licensed FFL whenever firearm is transferred. So if you buy a suppressor, that's going to have a 4473 attached to it. If you buy a machine gun, that's going to have a 4473 attached to it, in addition to the tax stamp. And then if you buy a regular gun, that's going to have a 4473 attached to it. There's probably some other things if I thought about it, but in order to transfer, in order to take one gun from here and move it over there, it has to go along with that 4473. So in most states, like I said, there's just a few that have additional burden, but on most states, the FFL, which is licensee, or FFL is a licensee from the ATF, like let's say Arizona, that FFL is selling a gun to somebody. That person doesn't have some way to get bypass the call in to NICS. So as they fill out the 4473, they're going to get to a part where they can't fill out the numbers because they have to call in for it. If it's a CCW situation or some other situations, then the FFL can just finish the 4473. Everybody signs it and it's over. No third party is involved. But if you don't have a CCW or any of the other circumstances and you need to, or if you want to buy that firearm right away, then the FFL is going to call NICS, which is actually FBI, even though ATF is the one that started the whole thing. So they're going to call FBI NICS, and NICS is going to do a big background check on you. And that happens while they're on the phone. Usually takes less than like 5 minutes. And unless they're super busy, and it can take hours, but it usually takes like 5 minutes. And they basically just read a bunch of your data to them off of the 4473. They answer a couple of questions that the person has on the other end of the line. That person takes a moment or two to run a background check. They do it by name, not by social security number, which is good and bad. It's good for people that are worried about privacy, I guess, or concerned about privacy. But for people that have names like John Smith, anybody who has the same name as a criminal, it sucks for you, because whenever they run this, they'll go, you came up with 7 criminals. And I don't know if you're those 2 good ones or one of the 7 bad ones. So you're going to not get your gun today. You have to wait until we figure this out. Sometimes it just takes another 5 minutes and they figure it out, and the gun shop owner gets a phone call and you get your gun that day. But often, if you have the same name as a bad guy, then you're one of those people that definitely is frustrated by that whole system. Anyway, that's the normal system. Now, some states, I think it was 9 states whenever I did the research last. Now it looks like it might be 10 states. But some states decided, oh no, the ATF and blah, blah, blah from whatever was created in 1994, that's not good enough. Our citizens are much more deadly and they're horrible. They're probably criminals. So our state police is going to run an additional background check with our resources, because our resources are going to be so much better than the FBI. So those states, the gun shop owner says, oh, I want to sell you a gun? No problem. Let me just pay the state to run a fucking background check on top of the NICS background check that's mandatory since 1994. And those states laugh all the way to the bank because they make you wait longer. They usually, I don't know if they can actually, I don't know shit. Maybe they run that background check as fast as a NICS. I have no idea actually. Maybe they don't. But I do know that it's an additional burden that they've placed on the transaction somehow. Like, I don't know how that happens because the transaction should be between the FFL and the person, and the ATF is only involved because they're the licensee, the enforcement of the regulation for the license, and the state has nothing to do with shit. But somehow the state gets involved with you nine states, and that's something like 40% of the population has to either be given permission to own a gun in the first place, or specific permission with a fee to purchase each gun, and sometimes both. So the states that hate guns and gun owners are going to try to make it where you have to have both, like a permit just to own a gun, and then a permission slip every time you want to buy a specific gun. That way they can throttle you and they can monitor, what kind of guns you're buying and that kind of shit. Somehow that's going to make everybody safer. So it's a little bit of a rant there, but somebody out there may not be aware of all the, I don't know what to call it even, the ins and outs of the background check situation out there. DJ saying, sorry, that sucks that they put you all through that. And, why are they doing it? One, because there's this rift where the people who don't own guns think guns must be violent. I see them on TV and they can blow up a thing when they need to. And then when they don't need to, collateral damage. Like, they're always violent, though. And even you could just be sitting there and a gun will go off. Even in a comedy, a gun will go off, even when you don't want it to. It doesn't hurt anybody in a comedy, but it's funny. But it's not funny because it's so dangerous. And those people in the middle, like if you never drove a car before, let's say you live in a city, you're one of the city people. They've seen buses, right? They see cars on TV, but they've never seen a car before. So they think cars explode if if you hit a bumper too hard. They think cars, if you drive them off the, cliff or something, boom, they just explode. They think, somebody shoots randomly, and that happens all the time in the country, right? Because city people, they don't know what the country's like. So somebody's just shooting off their gun like randomly in the country, and a car gets in the way, boom, it's going to explode. Yeah, because they've never seen a car before, right? Like there's those people that have never seen cars before, except in reality, everybody's seen a car, and they've really never seen guns before. So that's where they get us, because a bunch of people just don't give a shit. They've never seen a gun before, only seen them in the movies. They're always super evil when they need to be, or just out of sight and out of mind when they need to be. However the script calls for it. And if the script's agenda is to make guns the bad guy, then you're just a normal kid until you pick up that gun and then you turn evil. And then it's super dangerous and you're instantly deadly and capable of mass destruction. And as soon as you drop that gun, it's not your fault anymore. You dropped the thing that was causing the trouble. So anyway, that manipulative shit is what's out there. And what are we doing to challenge that, right? To be the alternative to that, the real version of that. If people knew what guns were really like, they'd be like, I keep saying this, like guns would be boring as shit. They'd understand guns are boring as shit. One, they never hit what you're trying. Like you spend your whole life trying to make the thing hit where you want. And if you're lucky, you get kind of good at that. But most people, like every once in a while, like, you shoot 10 rounds and 7 of them will go where you want if you're lucky. But not very many people can make every bullet go where they want. So that part's boring. They get dirty every time you touch them. That part's boring. As soon as you buy them, they're immediately worth less. That part sucks. Every once in a while, like your oldest gun you own might get a little more expensive to somebody who might want that old ass gun, but they're not as good as an investment as we'd all like to hope. And what else? Like they get scratched up and they lose value. So they're not like they are better than a lot of investments, a lot of other hobbies, and a lot of other things people do. But they're not anywhere near as uniquely dangerous as the antis would, create the perception of. Anyhow, I'm ranting again because I think that's how we solve some of this shit where they're just coming at us with this concept that like gun owners need to have a permission slip, gun owners need to pay a fee. Again, it's not like, I'm sure they're happy that we have to pay a fee. And if they could, they would impose a penalty type of fee. But the fees are typically to pay for the infrastructure. Here in Arizona, for example, I don't know what our CCW costs anymore because we only get it every 5 years or whatever. But it's like $35 or something. It's not, doesn't really cost anything. And it changes between like $35 and $37 and $32, kind of, depending. And that's depending on how much the department costs to do it for the year. So each year they change the price based on how much it costs. And they basically are paying for, I think, the two ladies that do it and the machine that makes the card and the ink probably, or whatever it is they use. And, the hours that it takes those ladies to make the cards and ship them. So they're basically making their money back, and they don't, they're paying those two ladies or whatever, and that's it. Now, if the state is profiting off of it, that's totally different. That's annoying. But most of the time, the fees that we're paying aren't punitive. I guess that's what I said. They're not a penalty. They're really just paying for the infrastructure. But again, get rid of the permit, and then you don't need the infrastructure. The permit here is to buy, not own. Yeah, exactly. You would have to get the owner's permit, which you get a year before you have to worry about. You're not dangerous until a year from now, and then all of y'all are super dangerous unless you're permitted first. But again, these are steps that somebody who's probably trying to do, weigh the things in society to figure out, who gets the greatest good out of it, without knowing all the facts. And if you don't know all the facts, it sounds like a great idea. Oh yeah, why don't we just get guns off the streets? There you go. If the criminals don't have guns as an option, problem solved. They might fist fight with each other, but now if they're just fist fighting with each other, that paranoid Rambo doesn't have to have a gun either. So it's win, 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 win. They just don't take that a step further and say, yeah, just like heroin. Just like fentanyl. When we wanted fentanyl off the streets, we just said, no fentanyl. We put up signs. We made it illegal. And then all the criminals said, let's obey the law and let's listen to the signs and stop doing fentanyl and not do fentanyl. And that's how we got rid of fentanyl. And that's why we don't have fentanyl anymore, because all you got to do is make signs and say that you can't do it. And people who understand that you can do that, and the people who are law-abiding might agree, might abide, but those people in between who don't give a shit about the law and who are going to do whatever they want anyway, especially when they think you just made it a super good time to wail on dumb people who didn't carry a gun around, then you get increased crime. And that's what happened. I've been listening to NPR. That's what happened in the last 6 years. As crime went up and then it went down. And they're saying that it went down because people stopped carrying guns somehow. Interesting leap that they got there, but that's how they got there. Let's see, what's it saying? We get checked by the FBI and the State Patrol. Our CCW does not matter. Yeah, and again, that is that concept that somehow gun owners, are buying these dangerous things, and the fact that they're willing and interested in buying a dangerous thing is sort of justification that they should be checked, throttled. Like, why would you even want such a dangerous thing? That's an indication that you shouldn't get the dangerous thing. So it's for your own good and the good of society that we're going to throttle you. That's the kind of shit that goes through somebody's mind who doesn't understand and who is unchecked. If there's, somebody can have that opinion. We're not saying they can't have goofy ass ideas about guns, right? That's free country is all about. But we have the ability to affect those people that are rational in the middle, that really don't care, but understand when we're getting abused. If we just scream and complain every time we're stepped on, we're just annoying. If we set it up ahead of time, like, hey, we're just going to be minding our business over here. If y'all don't mind, I'm just letting you know that we get abused once in a while. And these people, if we can call our shots, and then 5 minutes later, the people that we're talking about come in and abuse us, you know what I mean? That's what we need to do. We need to start letting them know, like, hey, they're about to dismiss suicides and then complain about gun deaths, ignore suicides, and manipulate ages of children here in front of you. And once people understand that's what's being done, they're going to see right through that shit, and they're going to go, hey, you lazy coward liars, why don't you start addressing suicides if you really want to affect the number of people that die from firearms? And the people that they count as quote unquote children are obviously the people who are included in the number of suicides. So that's one of those things where, again, we are susceptible we are susceptible, and it's due to our inaction, our lack of action. As a group, it's not like individuals have to go do this. Although no single drop thinks it's responsible for the flood. Let's see. I'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs. It's not quite over yet, but hopefully it's sometime it'll be over. Well, this show might be over. It's 1 hour in, and we are getting some comments, but not enough to justify doing a 2-hour run. I'm a little bit too tired. But you are allowed to leave comments after the show, wherever you might be watching it. Now, Facebook will delete the show after like 2 weeks or something. Whenever you do a live show, they don't like live shows on Facebook. They'll allow them, but they do not like them. So after like 2 weeks, it disappears. But you got like 2 weeks to leave a comment. So feel free to leave a comment. I don't see all the comments on Facebook. There's way too many comments over there. So if you don't hear anything back right away, maybe jump over to YouTube or comment again, because like I just said, there's way too many comments on Facebook to catch them all. It's a ridiculously amount of comments over there. YouTube, not so much. YouTube hates guns. They've been restricting the gun channels and shit for a while. And because of that, there's no audiences over here. Nobody comments or anything. So if you comment on YouTube, it'll be seen. You comment weird, I delete you. This is real, meaning I don't give a shit. So I don't have to. I'm not so worried about views that I got to leave goofy shit up. I delete all that stuff. So if you just go over here to be weird, keep moving. And if you want to start a conversation, though, we're going to be here live on the regular. So leave a comment and a question, and we can address it. 2 Saturdays, Tony and I get together when we were both available and answer gun questions. A lot of people show up for that one. It's the most popular Second Amendment related podcast that's ever happened. It's beat the, what's his name? Joe Rogan podcast for the last 6 months running. And it's more downloads than any other podcast. Let's see, DJ is saying that Brooke does her show on Saturdays. I suspect this Saturday she might not be, but maybe, I don't know. But she does, talks about mental health, and think about it. We can talk about, like, if I fell down at a match and I busted my knee up, I'd be bitching about it. I'd be like, my knee hurt or whatever. Like, somebody left some 9mm brass and I tripped on it or something, right? If poked my eye out, I was shooting a 9mm and the slimy little 9mm brass poked me in the eye, I'd bitch about it. I'd be telling everybody about how I lost my eyesight due to 9mm brass poking me in the eye. But if 9mm makes you so depressed that you're mopey about it, you're not allowed to talk about that. We don't talk about our feelings, our emotions, and our mental states. Why? Because the 9mm shooters ruined it for everybody, mostly, but also the antis. They've monopolized the conversations about medical stuff and said that gun people aren't allowed to talk about medical stuff. Well, Brooke is working against that. She's trying to free the conversation to include mental health and how to talk about mental health. So it is something that's worth checking out, listening to on Saturday, being part of that show, or just sending it around, letting people know that it's happening. Let's see, reload the show and it ends. You know what? DJ's got the list or the number, which is 202-224-3121. And that's a number that's in Washington, D.C. And when the person answers the phone, they can connect you with whatever your congressperson or your senator might be. And it's real easy to remember. 202, which is a British caliber. 224, which is not 223, which is a caliber. And then 31, which isn't a caliber. And 21, which is also not a caliber. So if you just simply remember 202, which is a caliber, 224, which is right next to a caliber, 223, and then 31, which isn't anything, and 21, which is 10 less than anything, and it's super easy to remember that number. You can just call it whenever you want. There's the Ask Gun Questions link, and she said she may do live. Yeah, she's doing something that she told me about, so I'm not saying I know all the secrets. I just know all the secrets about whatever Brooke is doing. So 9mm may have done something to Browning. What happened was they required him to work on a gun in that caliber, and that's what eventually happened. So
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.